What's going on, everybody? Super excited to be here. Super excited to join you for this chat. This is one of those chats that I've been looking forward to giving, and one of those conversations that I've been looking forward to diving into. So, this is going to be a lot of fun. Um, I'm going to be sharing the screen, the slides. We're going to be jumping right into this. So, for Outside the Frame, we're going to be diving in today, but I have to start with a bit of a confession. I'm sorry, I have to start with a confession. This is something that I've actually carried with me for quite some time through my entire career, kind of through my entire life. It's something that a lot of people would say I have struggled with, I've had a problem with, and I would 100% agree with that. You see, for my entire life, I have been a wanderer. And when you hear that, you might be thinking, what in the world is he talking about? What does he mean by a wanderer? I'm not talking about a wanderer in the sense that I just get lost when I go places. I'm talking about a wanderer in the sense that my mind will just drift. I can literally go to a conference, and I love conferences. I love going out and meeting people in the flesh. I am kind of an introvert, so this is more my jam. But when I go to an event and I'm talking to people, my mind will sometimes wander. I can be having a conversation with someone and my brain just starts to shift and start to focus on other things. For example, I was at a conference a few years back and I was having a dialogue with someone around the shifts in video and how we went from a time in culture where we hated vertical video to now a time when we love it. And we were having this deep combo. And for some of you, you would say, yeah, that's a fun combo. I agree. I'm a nerd. I'm a media nerd. This is the stuff that I love. So I'm geeking out having this conversation about video, but my brain started to wander. It started to wander to a conversation that had nothing to do with me. It was a conversation that had nothing to do with marketing, had nothing to do with business. There were two people at this event, at this conference, having a conversation about butter, and my mind was completely enthralled into that dialogue. I became completely enthralled by the discussion that they were having about butter. Yes, butter. Whether or not you should keep the butter in the fridge or on the counter. Now, I have talked about this situation a few times, and I've realized that depending on where you live, the answer is actually going to be different. Personally, I live in Canada, so you leave the butter on the counter. It's okay because the weather isn't really that hot. But if you go to Italy, you go to Spain, somewhere like that, you probably want to put that in the fridge because it could melt on you. So I had this dialogue. I had this dialogue with someone about vertical video. My brain shifted to this combo, and it was so bad, folks. I had my wife who joined me at this conference, and unfortunately, when she came over to get introduced to this gentleman, I introduced her as my butter half. It was embarrassing. If I could blush, I would have been blushing. But it was so embarrassing. I went home and I decided I got to figure out what's going on up here. What's going on in my brain? And it turned out that there's this thing. There's this thing called the cocktail party effect that impacts all of us. All of us have the ability to use what is somewhat of a superpower called the cocktail party effect, where our brains are able to isolate sound from a specific region in a room. It's kind of like a cocktail party. You go to a wedding, you go to an event, you go to a luncheon, a dinner. You have the ability as a human, no matter what the decibel level is around you, to isolate all of the noise and be very focused on noise that you care about. So if you're at an event and you want to eavesdrop on something, it's actually even you're able to do that with your power cocktail party effect to listen to that and mute and reduce the volume of all of the other chaos and all of the other noise. The brain focuses on particular aspects of the sounds and is able to somehow wrap all of these different things together amidst chaos. This happens every single day. Now, when this happened and I did this research, it's also struck me that this is the same situation that all of us go into every single day. Every single day when we pull out our phone, every single day when we open up a new social channel, every single day when we go on to our new favorite platform, we are going into a sea of noise. And the internet has become the loudest cocktail party ever. Every single day there are new notifications, there's new videos going out, there's new posts going out, there's new updates on this channel, on that channel, there's video content, there's podcasts, there's stories, there's graphics, there's text, there's infographics, there's white papers, there's blog posts. There is tons and tons of noise. And it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming because the internet as a cocktail party is very difficult to be able to feed through that and isolate the sound that you actually care for. But folks, it's our fault. It's our fault. Some of you are marketers. Some of you have created content for a living, videos, etc. Some of you are content producers. Some of you are creative directors. Some of you have led content teams. It's all of our fault. Why? Because over the last 10 years, we have preached at the top of our lungs in boardrooms and in classrooms, in the streets, at networking events, on the internet. We have preached that content is king. Create more content and the world will be yours. Create, 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 create. We've all been preaching this. We've been told it. We have been sold it and we have bought it. The world has listened and the world has started to create more content than ever before. You would literally need to live thousands of years to be able to consume the amount of content that is created every single week on the internet. This is the world that we live in. We have all started to create, 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 create. But in reality, this idea and this obsession of obsessing over content has gotten us away from the true meaning of content marketing, and we've forgotten that second word, marketing. I say that we've embraced this whole concept of cream. Shout out to Wu-Tang, the originators of cream. But essentially, content rules everything around me. This is the mentality that so many teams have. But the mentality that we should embrace is different. When you look at search, it has changed forever. Currently, Google is no longer just a place that sends people to a website. It is now a place where you get information. When you look at books, you learn directly from these platforms. When you go to Google and you're looking for books, Google will tell you the books. You don't go to a blog anymore. When you're looking to improve your skin, Google will tell you exactly how to do that. Google has become a destination, folks. Google is no longer just a portal to send you somewhere. The same thing exists in so many different channels. It is becoming more and more challenging to win at the game of digital marketing than ever before. And it is because there's so much content, right? The number of posts that are going out on various channels every single day is at an all-time high, yet the engagement continues to drop. This is the reality of the world that we live in, folks. We live in a time where it is more difficult to win at digital marketing than ever before, and we can no longer embrace this idea that content is king. We need to embrace distribution. We need to embrace the idea of distributing the assets that we're creating, and embracing a new acronym of DREAM. Distribution rules everything around me. That is the model. That is the approach that I think we all need to embrace. We can't get caught up in this idea. And the way that we do that is we put marketing back in content marketing. There are so many companies that are going out every single day and they're just producing without thinking about the actual thing that happens next. It's content marketing. Let's market the content. And in today's session, what we're going to dive into is we're going to get really, really tactical. I'm going to give you this high level strategic framework around how you win at content marketing today, but we're also going to get into the weeds of how to distribute the stories that you're telling to ensure that they're reaching the audiences you want to reach. I believe in a 4 simple step framework that you should embrace in your business: research, creation, distribution, and optimization. By embracing those 4 simple steps, you will have the ability to tell stories that actually reach the right people. When it comes down to research, you might be doing a wide range of research. It could be customer research. It could be keyword research. It could be social media research, community research, backlink research. There's a ton of types of research that you need to do as a brand and as a marketer, a creator, to ensure that you have content market fit, meaning the content that you create is going to serve the market you're trying to connect with. Then you go out and you create those assets. You're writing blog posts, you're creating videos, you're developing these assets. Then you distribute them. You repurpose them, you turn them into social posts, you're sharing them in groups, into communities, into newsletters, into Reddits, into posts on X, etc. You're doing all of those things. And then finally, you're optimizing those pieces. You don't just create something once and let it collect dust. You're optimizing it, improving it, chopping it, remixing it, revising it, repurposing it, etc., so on and so forth, right? That's how you win. I have a simple motto, and I want this motto to stick with you after this. Create once, distribute forever. If you can embrace that mentality, if you can embrace that perspective, then you will be successful at content marketing. If you create a piece of content, you have to embrace this idea that you can distribute that asset forever. It is not something that you want to just collect dust. It's something that once you've created it, you view it as an asset that you are going to extract value from by promoting it, by repurposing it, by remixing it, by repackaging it, and by sharing it time and time again. A video, a blog post, an ebook, a resource, whatever it might be that you have created, do not make the mistake of thinking that it is a one-time thing. that asset that you've invested in, you should be thinking about how you can use it time and time again. And today we're going to dive into exactly that. So, first, let's dive into one of the key steps in the entire framework around content marketing, which is research. Let's talk about how you embrace that model, create once and distribute forever. But first, let's dive into the research side. The first thing that you need to do is understand your audience. So, how can you understand your audience? There's a wide range of different tools. One tool that's out there that I strongly encourage folks to check out is called Audience with an S. And what you're able to do is you go into this tool and you're able to identify what your audience is like. You can learn a little bit more about the people who follow your brand by understanding their psychographics and their demographics. You can see what newsletters they subscribe to. You can see what type of content they're reading online, what websites they're browsing. You can start to see what brands they're consuming, what their interests are. All of these things you can learn. You can start to dive in and really get a better sense of the interests that other people might be overlooking when it comes to your audience. So you're able to segment your audience into different groups. Some of your audience might be C-suite executives. Some of your audience might be just good old-fashioned football fans. Some of your audience might be very deeply engaged into the world of gaming. And if so, maybe you should look at trying to sponsor a few gaming influencers or their Twitch streams or things of that nature. You need to understand your audience in the places in which they're spending time so you can create content that aligns with them and distribute content and your brand on the channels in which they're spending time. Every process should start with research, studying your audience, studying the keywords that they're typing into Google, understanding what newsletters they're subscribed to, what podcasts they listen to, etc. And then you move on to creation. Somewhere along the way, as marketers, we've fallen into this trap again of just saying, let's create content using our gut instinct instead of using insight to actually guide that research. Go into the communities where your audience is spending time and actually reverse engineer and think through what are the stories that really get people talking, right? Go into a subreddit and sort the content by top posts in your audience's niche and really start to look and see what are people talking about? What do people care about? Use that info to inform the stories that you tell and use that info to inform the messages that you're going to create and the content that you're going to create for time to come, right? That is the process, that is the model, and that is the way that you win at content marketing today. Now, I want to share with you a simple concept that when it comes to content creation is very, very important. It's an idea called the 4 E's. And when you embrace the 4 E's, when you're developing content, you increase your ability to be successful, right? Educate, engage, entertain, and empower. These are the 4 types of content that if you are not producing, you are very likely creating pieces of content that nobody wants to see. And if you aren't getting traction, it's probably because the content you're producing doesn't fall into these categories. Educational content, engaging content, entertaining content, and empowering content. These are the types of assets that people want to read as humans. What does this mean? Educational content. Educational content is content that will inform me and provide me with information on something that I care about and that I want to know. It's how-to information, it's new data. It will help me get closer to my desired goal. Everybody goes on YouTube, goes on Vimeo, goes on these websites, goes on TikTok, goes on Reels, goes on Twitter, goes on LinkedIn. We go on these channels to learn things. And if you go onto these channels and you're trying to learn things, you're trying to essentially educate yourself. So if you as a brand can create educational content, then that educational content can help your audience, and that audience is going to feel positively about your brand because you educated them on something new. Engaging content. This is content that stirs up a dialogue, right? Content that gets people having a conversation. It starts to build connection. Seth Godin once said that content that is remarkable is content worth creating. What he meant by that is take that word remarkable and break it apart. Content that is remarkable is content that is worth making a remark about. So we need to create, as creators, content that is engaging in the sense that it stirs up a dialogue, because through those dialogues become connection, right? You also want to create content that is entertaining. Now, some of you will say, well, my brand is very serious. We can't be entertaining. That's okay. You don't need to be hilarious and funny. You don't always need to go out to the market with knee slappers because they're so funny with the content you create. You don't need to do that. You don't need to embrace the memes, although for a lot of companies, they probably should. You can go down the path of creating entertaining content with a whole different spin outside of just humor. Content that's inspiring, content that makes people feel motivated, that makes them feel good. that can be entertaining content as well. So you don't always need to embrace content that is humorous in general, right? And then finally, empowering content. Empowering content is the content that essentially makes other people feel celebrated, showcasing other people, elevates other brands, elevates other people. When you see a brand come out with a piece of content that breaks down the top 10 people within their industry that are doing X, Y, and Z, or they're celebrating someone who works within their organization who has been there for 20 plus years. This is empowering content, and this is content that that individual is going to see and they're going to feel good about, but also all those who watch the brand are going to feel good about from just being an associated member of this community and of this space. Embrace the 4 E's with every single asset that you create. The creation process, folks, is changing forever. You can use tools like Midjourney today that are fundamentally going to change the way that content is done. And I want to talk about this because a lot of people are talking about AI changing our jobs and changing our careers. Midjourney is an AI image creation tool. You can go into Midjourney and you can ask it. Literally, what I did was I want an advertisement for Tylenol Pain and Fever starring Donald Glover, and they gave it to me. I want a Pizza Hut ad using Serena Williams, hyper realistic, and it gave it to me. Now, this was on one of the early variations of Midjourney, and it came out okay, right? I'm not saying you would go out and run an ad with this campaign, but imagine if you are a creative director, a designer, or you're an art director, and you start to use this type of AI tool to put celebrities to use to kind of bring to life a creative idea that you have within the matter of seconds, instead of having to go through the process of trying to work through stock photos, etc. You can just get it brought to life. The world that we live in as it relates to creation is going to fundamentally change, right? And this is why moving away from that create mentality is so important, because now you're going to be competing with brands and businesses and people who are able to create things so fast on the back of these AI tools. Is this going to cause challenges in the industry? No question about it, right? No question that AI tools are going to shake things up, but there's a major opportunity here if you embrace them well. Let's take, for example, some of the tools that are available even in Vimeo, right? Like most recently, I've been toying with Vimeo and their AI scriptwriter, and I've used the tool to literally write a script around things that I want to talk about in marketing. Write a script on 10 things that you need to know as a B2B marketer. And then within the matter of seconds, that script gets developed directly in Vimeo's AI tool. And then from there, I'm able to get a teleprompter that shows up on my screen, and I just read a script that was created 5 seconds ago. A script that is funny, if I select funny, can be formal if I select formal, or it can be long or short depending on my own requirements. This is the world that we live in. Creating content is becoming easier than ever. And thus, we as marketers, as creators, need to embrace the idea of distributing these stories, distributing these assets, distributing these pieces of content that we create, because now that part is way easier, way simpler than it ever was before, right? It's actually mind-blowing to think about. There are some tools that allow you to kind of create at scale massive amounts of content. One of those tools is called Copy AI. There's another one called Jasper as well, where you're able to input keywords into these tools, and then within the matter of seconds, it can go through a series of prompts. Prompts being pre-developed chains of commands that you want it to go through, and it will start to create blog post briefs and then fill in those briefs with blog posts. And then at the end of it, you will get a final asset. You can upload an entire spreadsheet of more than 20 different keywords. And then from those 20 keywords, be met with 20 different blog posts. Then you take those blog posts and you can turn them into something that is worth promoting. The world of creation is changing, folks. Now we need to think through how we distribute these assets that we're creating in a way that is meaningful and in a way that actually provides us with the ability to see the ROI that we could have gotten back in 2021, back in 2020, before the algorithms all changed, before the platforms changed, and before AI made it so easy for brands to create content. So let's jump into it. You've pressed publish on a great piece of content. What do you do next? You distribute it forever. You do not just let that piece of content collect dust. You start to distribute it, you start to amplify it, and you start to make sure that it's spread, especially if that piece falls into the category of the 4 E's. If it's educational, engaging, empowering, or entertaining, you want to spread that asset. Let me give you a few tactical ideas on how that's done. So, Facebook groups are one of those channels that have been Facebook pages and groups present a major opportunity. So Facebook pages have been around for years. I think they came out back in like 2009 or something like that. I don't know about you, but my life between 2009 and now is completely different. And the people who started these pages back in 2009 are also in completely different stages of their life. The pages back then, and fast forward to today, have unlocked tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of followers. For example, this page, I Love Engineering, has over 92,000 followers, right? 92,000 people who follow a page called I Love Engineering. You can probably assume that most of them are probably going to be engineers, or they're going to be people who have a deep interest in engineers. So if I have a product that sells to engineers, this probably would be a page that is relevant to me, especially if they have 92,000 followers. So what could I do? I could reach out and ask them to share my stuff, etc. But let's think through this strategically. The person who ran this page is probably not in the same situation they were back in 2009. Maybe they would sell it to you. Maybe you can acquire a graveyard Facebook page, one that has not been published and not using content for a while, and see if they would sell it to you. I've done exactly this for clients, for ourselves at Foundation. We've done this where you reach out to these pages and you're able to see if they would sell access to 92,000 followers on their page and whether or not this is something they would offer. Turns out this page that we reached out to, it wasn't that one in particular, it was another, but they offered to sell the page for $5,000. We were like, okay, would you go any lower? They said 3,000. Great, amazing. That turned out to be about 10 cents alike, and we didn't actually have to pay for any ads. We already had a website associated with it. We were able to get that money back in the matter of weeks, right? This is the opportunity. Some of you might have had your cocktail party effect on just now, opened up a new tab, opened up a new browser, opened up a new window, started to walk away, maybe got a coffee, said he's talking about Facebook. That doesn't matter in my industry, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing, folks. If you're in B2B, a lot of times we like to say, oh, we're in B2B. Facebook isn't where my audience is spending time. B2B decision makers are on Facebook. They're on meta properties. They're using meta properties. They're using these channels. They're using Reddit. They're using TikTok. They're using all these things because this is a Shrek reference, but we as humans are like onions and we have layers. We don't just show up as a professional every single day of every minute of every second of every minute and every hour. We have layers. We might be on Facebook looking at our favorite football sport team. We might be on Instagram scrolling through people who we've been connected to since high school and having conversations. We might be looking up sourdough recipes. We might be looking at Miss Rachel and something for our kids. Like there's so many different avenues and facets of us as humans that it's easy as B2B marketers to get lost in the sight that we are like onions and we have different layers. Your audience is likely on these channels. Do not sleep on them just because they are not labeled as the professional network. Thus, you can go into these channels such as Facebook groups and identify groups where your audience is spending time. Let's say you're trying to connect with Shopify entrepreneurs that run an e-commerce business. You can go into Facebook, go up to the search bar, type in entrepreneurs and Shopify, and in the matter of seconds, be met with groups that have over 111,000 members, and the only people who are joining a drop shipping group on Shopify probably drop shippers who are interested in Shopify. So you go into that group and now you have a place where you can start to distribute your content. You just press publish on a great piece, the ultimate guide to drop shipping for entrepreneurs in 2023, 2024. You go into this group, you share that link, you now have distribution access to 111,000 people. Or if you want to play the paid game, you reach out to the admin and you ask them if you're able to sponsor that group for the next 2 months. This is something they probably have never heard of before. They're going to be amazed that you found them. They're going to be excited that you found them. And then they are going to say, yes, let's do it. And they're going to give you an opportunity because they don't understand the value that their group can bring to you. And you can take that and you can use it and circulate your content within it. And you can, again, get that ROI relatively quickly. Create once, distribute forever. With that, you might think, okay, Ross, is done. No, there's more. Let's say that you've created a podcast. Let's say that you have created a podcast asset. Let's say you've created a webinar or any type of content. Take those video assets and start to share them on social. Start to repackage them on not only your company page, but also on your people's page. Start to empower your entire team within your organization by pre-writing status updates that they can remix and update and use themselves to share on their content as well. right? They don't have to do it, but it's an offer. It's something that you're delivering to the team as essentially a icing on the cake. Here, let me make it easier for you. If your team is on a podcast, listen to that podcast and identify money moments, which are moments where they could drop the mic at the end because it was so good what they said. You chop that up, you add captions, and you reshare that on social media. You can do this multiple times with one single episode, right? There is so much power in podcasting if you repackage that content. You can then take text posts that you may have created, your team may have created, and turn them into carousels. Turn them into social carousels that can live on things like LinkedIn. You can turn them into presentations that would live on a channel like SlideShare. You can take these assets and turn them into visual graphics that ultimately are even more engaging, right? This is the possibilities. You want to remix your old content. You can take data from a white paper, data from a research study that your team has recently done, and take it out of that white paper that people would have to download to get access to, and just share the data. Just share that one individual screenshot. Put your logo on it, put your brand on it, and share it on your social channels, and then include a link for people to check out the entire white paper, right? Do not let that content that you've created collect dust. And then after you do that, go into Vimeo with the AI script writer and then create a script where you're talking about this data. And then share that video on social media as well. The opportunities are endless, folks. You can take blog posts that you've written on your website, and this is a low-hanging fruit, and there's two insights here that I need to share with you. One, Google recently just updated their algorithm. This is called the helpful update double eat, so to speak, where they're emphasizing experience, authority, expertise, and trustworthiness. And if your website has blog post content, you can now take that blog post content, upload it to LinkedIn, and some of that content as an article on LinkedIn is actually ranking in Google higher than traditional brands because Google trusts LinkedIn. So if you can put your content on LinkedIn as an article and upload it, there's a major opportunity. Remix your blog posts into LinkedIn articles as well. And then take that full content asset and turn it into a cycle of different assets. You can turn that blog post into a LinkedIn piece and then turn that LinkedIn piece into a video. And then you can take that video and you can embed it into an article. And from that article that has that content embedded, you can share that on social as well, right? It becomes kind of like an inception web where the content that you're using to create content can be used to create more content, which can be used to create more content. That is the playbook. That is how you distribute content forever. And if you are creating content on video, for example, you can also use Vimeo's OTT where you can actually stream one single asset, one live stream. Let's say you're giving a webinar. Let's say you're giving a presentation. Let's say you're breaking news in your industry. Instead of just saying, okay, we're going to just upload this and then hopefully people will find it on our social channels, using OTT, you can actually have it distributed through Facebook Live, through YouTube, through Patreon, through all of these different channels. So you can tap into networks and audiences that you wouldn't be able to if you just uploaded it and called it quits. This is how distribution is done. But I would advise that you plan in advance. It's very easy to hear all of these opportunities, get all excited and say, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to share. And then for 2 weeks, you share content and then you feel burnt out. Very easy to fall into that trap. So I advise that you plan your distribution engine in advance, right? Like take a step back, look ahead and say, what days do we have to come? And how do we want to amplify our stories? How do we want to promote these stories? Well, you create that plan of attack. When are you going to share a thread on X? When are you going to share this as a newsletter? When are you going to have time to repurpose and repackage these videos that can be then shared on social? All of these things need to be considered, and all of these things should be a part of your marketing mix, and you should plan it. Embrace that motto, folks. Create once, distribute forever. Now, here's another tool that I've been playing with, and I'm thinking now around the idea of experimenting and optimizing your content. There's a tool called 11 Labs. And with 11 Labs, you're able to essentially create your own voice in any language, and you're able to upload, let's say, podcasts of your voice, and it will recreate your voice on your behalf, right? People are doing this literally today and creating YouTube videos where they don't actually show their face ever, but they have an AI trained on their voice talking as them. I did this with 11 Labs, and I created essentially a deep fake of myself. I took my podcast, Create Like the Greats. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely should. It's on all of your favorite podcasting tools, on all your favorite podcasting platforms. And I uploaded hundreds of hours of myself with footage. I uploaded all of these hours. It then listened to my voice and it recreated it. It doesn't get my Canadian abouts and stuff like that yet, but it's close. I then took a image of myself over to a tool called DID, and it created essentially a deepfake of me. A deepfake of me talking, a deepfake of me looking into the camera. It blinked. It didn't really get my mannerism with my jazz hands and that whole movement thing. But you have to ask, like, what will be next? When you're able to use these tools to distribute your content, I'll be eventually able to take a blog post script, upload it to these tools, and it will essentially talk for me, right? This is the power of these channels. Embrace the model, create once, distribute forever. But you also want to use channels like Reddit and Quora to submit your content directly into them and let that content spread. You can take inspiration from people like Jason Lemkin, who find questions that are relevant to their industry and are answering those questions with high value answers and including links to content they've created. You want to look at things like Substacks that you can sponsor. You want to look at good old fashioned Google search and try to find newsletters that you can reach out to and sponsor as well. Embrace the motto, folks. Create once, distribute forever. Whenever I say Reddit, people get nervous. Folks, Reddit is one of the top visited sites in the world. Don't be afraid to submit your links to Reddit. People on Reddit love links. So submit that content, submit those links. People will love them. And if you're unsure whether or not your content will actually be valuable, then sort that content by the top post. Sort it by the top post, and you can start to get the insights around what content your audience wants so you can give it back to them. Another simple place to do it is Slack. When I say Slack, a lot of you might think, oh, that's a place where we talk about work stuff. It can be, or it can be a distribution channel. You can find channels where your audience is spending time and start to distribute your stories in those as well. You can find channels on music, on design, on graphic, on marketing, etc. There's a great site called toppub.xyz where you can start to feed your blog posts directly into various Medium publications. To put it lightly, folks, Medium is also a great channel for repurposing your content. Start to think about it like guest blogging instead of just as a place to live your content. Consider reaching out to people who you talk about, asking them to include their content on your websites. Send an email to them, send them a DM. There's so many opportunities that exist. Whether you are buying websites, whether you're acquiring websites, there are so many opportunities that exist. If you want them, you can download them at this website. It's completely yours. Now, here's how I want to wrap this up. You might be thinking, folks, what in the world is right for me? I hear you. There was a lot. There was so much right there. You've got Reddit, Slack, Facebook, Quora, etc. So many different channels. What in the world do I choose? The opportunities, folks, are endless. There's so much competition. Start laying the foundation today. Keep showing up for events like this. Keep teaching yourself. Keep learning, because that is where the biggest opportunities lie. When you commit to education, you will unlock more opportunities, and you'll ask yourself 5 years from now, 3 years from now, was it worth it? And you'll say, you better believe it. Thank you all so much. I hope you got value out of this presentation. You can find me online, Ross Simmonds at The Coolest School. I'd love to connect with you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.